Hello, everybody. My name is Nino Crudele. I'm very pleased to be invited here in the Serverless conference. It's an honor for me, and really enjoy this kind of speech, especially about security. Something about myself, I'm Solution Director in Hitachi Solutions. I'm Microsoft MVP since 2006, so very long journey. I'm certified ethical hacker. I have a master in cybersecurity, which is actually a very, very important topic for me. Let's just dig in the topic. First of all, just explaining you a bit about my job, what exactly I'm doing, so you can actually understand much better about my person. My job in Hitachi Solution, I cover area like, so I'm responsible about area like cloud enablement, modernization, enterprise integration, and DevOps. My cores are especially the cloud enablement, where we actually cover assessment and cybersecurity. And for the reason you can also see here in the slide, some of the activity and solution and consulting we provide. So feel free to contact us at any time if you are interested about that. So today we are going to cover one of the most important topic. This is going to be about the security. So first of all, a very important disclaimer. So any information you are going to hear about in this session, please use for the good. So this is just about the study and important for you. So during this session, we are going to look about some real attack on the cloud, especially one, and also about the solution, of course, which is absolutely important to know, right? So about security today, that's important for me. It's very important things to explain, especially because we miss this point. What actually changed in security? Look about on the left about on-premise data center, on the right about the cloud. So you can actually see immediately the difference. Looking about the data center, what I like to call the attack surface and endpoint, it was a kind of very, very different from cloud. Different kind of a point, different kind of, I would say more different granular things, different rack, wherever it is. In the cloud, you see here on the right, is completely different approach. Actually, in the cloud, what we have is this is important idea of having absolutely the tenant. Inside the tenant, we have account, and the tenant and the Azure resources are actually tied to a tenant. In Active Directory, we have different accounts. One important account in the cloud is actually the global admin. Why so important? Because it's actually the top account in the cloud. And if a hacker is actually able to hack this account, is actually able to get everything inside the cloud. So actually access everywhere inside the cloud. So when we speak about serverless, we need to be careful about these kind of things. But let me explain deeper about this concept. Let's first dig in the top attack. Top attack in the cloud, from my experience, is for sure social engineering, because we release information and humans are quite easy to attack, much easier than technology and so on. The other kind of attack are malware and phishing. So this is actually the order where you need to be careful. Considering a serverless solution, you need to understand about one of your developer or wherever can receive an email, and this email actually contain a malware. Your developer click or the person click on this link is actually installing the malware, and from the malware, the hacker is able to get and create the backdoor. Today, I'm going to show you exactly this kind of attack. Top target are human, of course, because humans are really, fortunately, vulnerable. We are human, so we do mistakes. So, of course, we are the first target for hackers. And infrastructure and what I like to call, the by design, but I would say more misconfiguration. So this is another things where hackers are really keen about, because there are a lot of misconfiguration inside the infrastructure. We don't set properly things and setting. We release information inside the code and misconfiguration. So this is the kind of things that hackers are actually always looking for. let's start immediately in the most important things. During this session, I want just give you the most important information you need for security on serverless solution. Let's start with the most important things you need to consider to achieve a really strong security baseline. So what are the pillars? Zero trust, don't trust anyone. Policy. Policy is really important because without policy, you cannot have any kind of security. If you're not using policy, there is no security at all. Wherever solution you are using, it can be serverless, it can be wherever other type of solution, databases, or wherever it is, BI, artificial intelligence, wherever you want. Role-based access security and MFA, absolutely important. Compliance, your solution must be compliance. You have Security Center in the cloud. Security Center is actually what you need to use to achieve a fantastic compliance, a very easy way to do that, because actually the Security Center is providing you a lot of inbuilt compliance that you can actually use and apply on your solution, and is actually helping you to achieve this compliance. Security automation, of course, to keep consistent on that. Prevention, that's important because actually we block and stop the hacker before the attack. What we have in Azure is fantastic. Sentinel is absolutely awesome. Is something that if you are not looking on that, you actually need to look at Sentinel. It's a CM system offered by Microsoft in Azure, able to offer authority. We will speak about that if we have a time during the session or in the next session. And of course, internal expertise, SOC team. You must have people expert about security in your company. Okay, let's start with something about zero trust. So in general, something people misunderstand is about the source. Where actually an attack we can get an attack from what, where. We have two different areas. One is external and one is internal. I just want to make you this simple because it's actually very easy to understand for everybody, even for myself. So we have external and internal. They are both extremely important. That's a very important point for you. So, I mean, we can get an attack from external, but I see many customers ignoring the internal one, which actually, I can tell you by experience, is the most frequent attack. It can be because you hire a junior or a new person. Is actually this new person is a hacker. And so you get hacked from the internal. And this is the most devastating attack, usually. So looking at about the attack surface, we got about external and internal. This is a classic serverless solution where we have API gateway, we have authentication, HTTP, HTTPS, and we have API management, of course, on top. We have a workflow, orchestration, function, logic apps. We have a software as a service interfacing with logic app, wherever. And of course, we have shared services with developer. We have IT administrator and so on. This is a classic architecture solution for serverless. So looking about this architecture and thinking about, well, where I can get an attack in this serverless solution, we start thinking about, well, it can be logic app for decoding, of course. It can be application gateway, of course. It can be a lot of different things. But maybe, and often we exclude and ignore some of the point which actually technology we use everywhere, like a PowerShell. You can see in there on top. PowerShell is, we know PowerShell. PowerShell is everywhere. PowerShell is used in a virtual machine, containers, of course. This is why it's serverless. Azure Function. I read a lot, and I know many people are using PowerShell in Azure Function, used by IT administrator, by developer, everywhere, using in DevOps, Terraform, and many other points. Let's think about the PowerShell and what kind of attack we may face. Give you this example very quickly. This is Bob, an IT administrator who is using PowerShell now, and using PowerShell to connect in Azure. This is just a classic serverless support IT administrator releasing some stuff using PowerShell. It can be even a user at Azure Function using PowerShell. It can be everything using PowerShell. So it's using the classic connected Z account. What's happening there? is actually using this one to log in Microsoft Azure. When the administrator is going to use this command in PowerShell, what is going to happen, PowerShell is actually going to store token, a specific JSON token in the machine of the administrator. This is actually a JSON token, plus many other information. This is not actually a session about this kind of attack. I also have something else to show with a lot of different things about this kind of attack, but this is actually specific for serverless. So assuming we are using PowerShell, PowerShell is going to store the token in the machine. So what the hacker can do, the hacker actually can use any kind of technique. It can be a rubbery duck key, which is a USB key able to execute scripting. So you insert this key inside the computer, executing scripting, PowerShell scripting, wherever, or it can even access to the computer or wherever. We can send a malware in the computer of the administrator executing the script, and he can take this token. He can just grab this token. And when he grabs this token, what he can do is he can actually use this token using PowerShell command, impersonate Bob, without care about knowing about username or password, wherever, just using the token, impersonate Bob. And after impersonate Bob, he can create a principal account in the cloud as a backdoor. And after that, he can access to the cloud using this principal account and do, depending, what actually Bob is, he can do operation inside the cloud using the backdoor. So assuming Bob is a contributor is already a very high level. If even Bob Wars is a global administrator, then it's going to be something really, really, really bad. So let's just jump very quickly about the demo. These are the script. I created actually the script. I can tell you something that is really important. This kind of attack, this kind of technique, so storage cloud credential, this is the name of the attack. Azure Cloud Storage Credential attack is actually working also in AWS, Amazon. And I can tell you in AWS and Amazon is worse, because actually I tried this attack in Amazon, and in Amazon I can also using by putty, because it's storing credential, getting username and password in clear. This is even worse. So this is the command using by the administrator, first script, second script. What is going to be is going to look and get, this is for demo purpose, I just put in clear what exactly is going to be. What I'm doing here, this is documented in MSDN. So if you look in MSDN, it's actually telling you that PowerShell is going to do that, is going to save this file. So it's not a secret what I'm showing you here, of course, but when I read about that, of course, I start investigating about a kind of security attack. This is actually possible to do. So using this command, I'm going to import the context from the JSON token. This is where I'm going to impersonate Bob. And after that, I'm going to set the subscription, everything. This is also very important to understand why it's not good to share subscription to hackers and so on everywhere, wherever it is. And after that, with this PowerShell, I'm going to create the service principal account. On the bottom, as you can see, I'm going to display and show username and password that I'm going to use. In the third script, I'm going to use this command, okay, get credential, to log with the principal account, and I'm going to create a resource group with this name. So let's just very quickly go in this attack. I'm going to execute the first script. This is going to be my account. So actually now I log inside this account. I can tell you this attack is also working using, even if you have multi-factor authentication enabled. Now I'm logged. I'm the administrator logged in Azure. Now I'm the hacker. So this is the script executed by the hacker. This can be also by script injection, okay? So you have an Azure function executing PowerShell and running in a container, which is a Windows machine. Of course, it's not easy to access to the file because, of course, Microsoft isolate by security. But, of course, you can do script injection in this way. So I'm executing this. This is quite scary attack because this is a kind of things that may happen everywhere. So you have your laptop wherever. So this is the password and username from the service principal account. Let me put this one in a notepad, so I can just quickly grab and copy. And after that, I'm going to execute the third script. So I'm going to log in. Do you remember the get credential scripting? So at some point, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put the username. I'm going to put the password, which was password 1. So I'm going to click OK. And now I'm using the principal account, log in the cloud, and I'm going to create the resource group. Actually, I created the resource group. Okay. This is actually what's happened. It's very easy. Things are happening. And this is why it's extremely important. Now it's going to take a bit to create the resource group. At some point, it's going to do that. So this is actually this is what the things. Let me refresh again. Okay, resource group created. And what actually happened here is actually created the app registration. So here you can see Power BI Extender is the name of the principal account. Of course, it's using a common name for that. So any administrator is thinking about this is a service principal for PowerShell, which is actually not. So let's dig in back. Solution for that, using Azure Bastion, protect your perimeter, using PowerShell and Bash from Portal and Console during your solution. Don't use that in your laptop, wherever. Educate employee, protect and lock your computer, do security campaign. Azure Bastion is actually very useful things to use to isolate for remote connectivity to Azure. You install Azure Bastion in your VNet to access internally via RDP in your machine, and your people are actually able to access externally just using HTTPS. Always speaking about external, Microsoft Azure provide a lot of things to protect as a protocol for Logic App, Function, API apps, wherever you have authorization protocol 2.0, which is absolutely important to you. And this is something that I strongly recommend. I don't want to spend too much time on the slide. You can have the slide and you can just read about the slide. It is important just to give you very quickly some of the most important point about the baseline security. Endpoint security, IP filtering for Logic App, and wherever it is, function, API management on front, always don't deliver serverless solution without API management on front. That's absolutely important. This is crucial. After that, enable IP filtering for runtime logs, data things. That is a must, absolutely. Other things, networking, external, very important. As you can see here, that's a very good best practice, something I recommend you. You have multiple subscription, then use a base subscription. In your base subscription, you install all the most important shared asset you have for security in the cloud, like ExpressRoute, API management, Azure Front Door, Traffic Manager, wherever it is, even your own firewalling and security, Azure Network Watcher. And from the I would say the base subscription, you go by peering to the other subscription. That's really good practice. I absolutely recommend you this one. Another good baseline for security, especially for external, is using ExpressRoute, site-to-site VPN, always. Where you can, for global company, absolutely recommend, no doubt. There is no cost justifying security. Security is the most important things. You put your business at risk. There is no cost on that. If you get hacked, your business is done. There is nothing to do. So good to invest some good money in technology like ExpressRoute instead of, risk about security and risk your business. So solution on that, of course, for external attack, remove all the public IP, use VPN, ExpressRoute, Azure just-in-time access, that's really important. Protect using firewall, educate people, and security campaign. Many people don't really understand a lot about, or missing about this kind of picture. So about how actually I'm going to organize my external endpoint, how you can improve my external endpoint security for scalability, security, and so on. So I prepared for you this very useful table. Is what I like to call the magic quadrant. I always use this, it's very useful for me. About the protocol, global and regional. That's very simple if you organize your mind like that. So protocol, two type of protocol, HTTP, HTTPS, and all the other protocol. Global, two main services. For HTTP, HTTPS, Azure Front Door. That's it. If you want to be global. If you want to control in regional, then application gateway. When we speak for any other protocol, good baseline, use Azure Traffic Manager in global. And when you are going to specific by region, then use Network Load Balancer. About attack surface on the serverless application, well, we have our application, but we always miss one point. There is not just about the application. There is always data center, networking, service, virtualization, provisioning, operating system, setup, patching, monitoring, scalability, configuration. So when we look about serverless, it's not just about the function itself only. There are many things to consider. If you look about the serverless component, look about this diagram, or look about this slide. Let's have a look about security speaking now. We have the platform development, the platform with Logic App, Event Grid, a lot of different technology, and we have, of course, the development with EDI support, DevOps, all these kind of things. What about the attack surface here? Well, as you can see, I can tell you one of the most attacked entity inside serverless are actually DevOps. People are looking to attack your DevOps because you use DevOps to deploy. Watch much better than attack DevOps on that. They are going to do script injection, maybe use PowerShell in DevOps, and they are going to inject scripting in DevOps. You deploy and boom, you are going actually to execute yourself the attack and inside your solution, or you even deploy malicious code inside your infrastructure. So that is something DevOps you absolutely need to look and consider. So secure DevOps and use the zero trust. And for that, of course, lowest permission as possible. And of course, platform, Logic App or function, wherever there is code and misconfiguration in the coding. And well, look at this container, of course, because the function are actually, it can be hosted in a container like a Windows machine or a Docker container. So the hacker, what they are going to do is actually go inside the container and escalate or attack inside the container. So when you look about these kind of things, well, you need to consider a lot of things for your security. So manage identity, role-based asset security, code scanning, vulnerability testing, and all these kind of things. Use security appliance like Security Sentinel, Security Server, Center, Sentinel, and so on. So these are all things you actually need to use. When we speak about manage identity is a classic example. We use key and store key and connection string or wherever inside the code, and these are very bad things. So what is about the managed identity? Managed identity, this is about Key Vault. We also have Key Vault, of course, and it's important to consider. I put this slide because in Key Vault you can actually store your information in Key Vault and you can get your information in Key Vault, but there is always one weak point, which actually the authentication. You require authentication to authenticate your Key Vault. So if an hacker, even internally, is able to access to your Key Vault, is actually able to authenticate in your Key Vault, then is actually able to get all the information in your Key Vault. So why manage identity? Because managed identity is able to provide you this very secure approach and pattern where actually you create an identity, which this identity is hooked to a solution, to a Azure resource, serverless resource, which actually can be Logic App or function. And this function is using managed identity, who actually behind the scene is a service principal account in the T directory to access to the resource. So what is the good point about that? Nobody is able to access to any kind of information. So actually, you don't have the connection string about SQL or the storage account or whatever it is. So nobody, even the developer, no one actually has any kind of clue, understanding, or is able to access, or you don't deliver any kind of information of any type about authentication. This is why managed identity is so important. If you are not using managed identity, I strongly recommend you immediately implement this in your serverless solution. Managed identity can be also user assigned. So in this case, first case is a system assigned. So you create this inside the resource. When you delete the resource, Azure for you delete everything, clean up everything. For the user identity, user assigned, you create a single identity. You can share this one across different serverless application, and you can manage by yourself. There is also managed identity for on-premise. So it's very usable if you integrate on-premise in this case. About the scanning source code, I mentioned you about different tools. I recommend you always Zap. It's free, very supported inside the community. Use a lot of API apps, logic apps, expose function, any kind of things. What I recommend you as a good baseline, use these kind of tools inside your infrastructure. They expose always Zap, a very amazing API interface that you can use from DevOps to automate scanning. You actually scan, your function, your API apps, wherever it is in automation continuously. That's a baseline. You need to have this kind of security automation always running. ZMap, Nmap, SQL Map, really good hacking tool. This is actually the same tool used by hacker to hack your serverless solution, and you can easily integrate this kind of scripting approach in your solution. So it's very good. Logic App, of course, is other things. I mentioned you about the covering things, information. This is something I put here because it's important. When you look about Logic App, Logic App, you can go in the history and even in the interface and look about the information, but Logic App is actually Microsoft offering you this kind of nice feature where you can actually click, check this button here, and you actually hide all the information inside Logic App. Policy, without policy, you cannot have any security. So company policy, Azure policy. You must have your company policy. You must have your company policy, which I mean is a document for the policy where you define all your policy in your company, how to use Azure, what kind of machine you can use, how you can spin up a network or wherever it is. And when you did that, you can actually create the Azure policy you need to force and enforce the company policy you define in your document. That is the procedure. We don't have a lot of time, but I will be happy in the next session to explain you more about that. Role-based access security, of course, because we can access to this serverless solution, Logic App, function, virtual machine, container by the portal. So role-based access security is important. Provide the lowest privilege you can for the specific Azure resource. And this is important because, as you can see in this diagram, we have the global admin on top, which is actually, you see, is going to inherit any kind of access. So lowest are the permission, better is. Especially because if you consider in an attack like this one, where an hacker is actually able to access in a container or virtual machine like this one, which is maybe join in a domain or something, think about how much devastating can be an attack like that, because actually the hacker can be even able to escalate. So use this one. As a solution, as I mentioned, you was multi-factor authentication, and curiously, in one of the Black Hat USA, Microsoft showed this interesting statistics where in 2019, just only the 8% of companies they used the multi-factor authentication, which is a kind of scary statistics. Now they are increasing, fortunately, but use. And avoid the chicken way, please. What I like to call the chicken way is because I do kayaking. When you do a river in kayaking, you have two ways to do that. One is the correct thing. Do the brave and the right way. Avoid the chicken way. It may look easier, but it's not. It can be really tough and worse than the brave right way. Use Security Center. Security Center is your best friend for baseline, security baseline, activity log, absolutely, activity monitoring, another good friend for you, Azure Sentinel. I just listing you these tools because these tools are really key tool you need to look at. You have a lot of session here during this conference, so look about this session, about these tools, everything, but it's really important. In Sentinel, you can use a custom query. You can actually integrate logs inside Sentinel, even from your product. Use Advisor, giving you always good, advisoring, everything about your health in the cloud. Blueprint, DevOps, and Terraform to automate everything. You must provide clear guideline, documentation. That's a must for having a very strong security baseline. And of course, motivate people internally. So just for security, enjoy, create a SOC team, create a blue team, red team, organize challenge between them. Guys really like that and really enjoy this kind of thing. They learn a lot about security. So this is why it's so important. Use the right tool. You have Kali Linux. Use Kali Linux. Kali Linux is amazing. You have a lot of hacking tool you can use for your automation testing, for learning. Parrot is really good. And of course, skill up your people. That's important. And for skill up your people, you can do CEH, certified ethical hacking, but the most important, you use the resource provided by Microsoft. Microsoft is providing a lot of things like the Microsoft University, very good initiative. The Architecture Center is really important. You can have the quick start template, a lot of different things. I leave you the link here so you can just enjoy about that and use the correct path for that. Start from the bottom. Always, you need to learn about the foundation, and from the foundation, go from the infrastructure, governance, strategy, networking, security, and after that, you are going to specialize for the correct things. All right? Very energetic session, guys. I'm very happy to get any of your question after that. And I hope you enjoy the material and everything I provide you. You will have all the slide you need. So thank you so much for joining my session, and see you, and ready for any question if you need. Thank you.